We rarely do stories on job postings, but this one's unusual, so it caught our eye. It's for the position of Maine State Poet Laureate. And to get the job, which lasts for 5 years, you have to be an accomplished poet and be eager to travel around Maine, talking about poetry and encouraging people to embrace it. So what's it like to have this job? To find out, Rob sat down with Julia Bausman, the current Poet Laureate, and Stuart Kestenbaum, who had the position before Julia.
When you run into people these days, and it comes up in the conversation, they don't know, what you do, and it comes up in the conversation that you are the Maine State Poet Laureate, and they say, that's interesting. Well, what does that entail? What is that job all about? What do you tell them?
I tell them that it's my job basically to represent poetry around, and promote and support poetry around the state and poets. And that my job involves a lot of driving around in my car.
Wow, that sounds glamorous, that last part. You've traveled all over the state.
All over the state.
It's an unusual title, Poet Laureate. So if you just say to somebody, they say, what do? You say, I'm a poet. They go, well, that's nice. And you say, Poet Laureate, and they go, oh, it's just got enough intrigue. It just gets their attention, which I think allows us to take on projects.
So there's no inherent clout in the job, but just the title alone, those two words, Poet Laureate, gives you a little clout.
I did say once that somebody said, well, what do you get for compensation? I said, well, when I'm on the Maine Turnpike, though, toll collectors just wave me through. And somebody thought I was serious. And now there are no more toll collectors, so it doesn't even matter. So that dates my laureateship.
What kind of a reception do you get when you go out and talk to people, when you talk to schools, you talk to groups, whatever?
Some people, because of the way that they were taught poetry in school, they're a little bit worried that there's a secret code and that they're not smart enough to crack the secret code. And so I like to assure people that that is not how any poet I know wants their poems read.
I don't think there's any doubt a lot of people are intimidated by poetry. They think it's too highfalutin or whatever, and it's not for them. And actually, poetry is, of course, for everyone.
For everyone,
right.
Yeah.
How do you break down those walls?
I think anytime you can get it to people before they put up their defenses is the way to do it.
We know the numbers on how many people read these days, and the number of people who read for pleasure has dropped dramatically in the last decade. I have to assume that the number of people who are reading poetry has dropped significantly.
Actually, I think the number of people who read poetry has gone up. Generally, during challenging times, poetry readership tends to go up.
The darker it gets, the more they like us.
Maine is now looking for a new Poet Laureate. It's the job that you have had for about the last 5 years and that you had for the previous 5 years. What would you say to people who are thinking about maybe applying for this position?
I mean, I would definitely say go for it because you never know what can happen. I applied not expecting to end up with the position, and I did, and I've learned so much. I've had so much fun. I've made so many new friends through poetry, which I think, again, I always think about poetry as being about human connection, so that's been an incredible experience.
I'm sure you've gotten some interesting stories from people or interesting responses to simply meeting you. Are there any encounters that you've had with folks that kind of stand out in your mind?
The work of poetry is really, it's kind of the work of living. So when somebody says, I read this poem and it mattered to me in this moment when I needed it most. I have so many stories of that. I can't bring up a specific one right now, but every one of those, moves me very much.
The Maine Arts Commission is looking for applications from anyone interested in being Maine State Poet Laureate. Whoever is chosen will serve for 5 years starting in July of 2026. And if you think you're right for the job, act quickly because the deadline for the applications is this Friday. You'll find a link with more information on the position and how to apply in the 207 section of our app and website.